Giulio never imagined that his life would change so drastically and suddenly. He was a middle-aged man, active, in good health, and led a balanced lifestyle. He loved sports and followed a healthy diet. Before continuing, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our stories. When he was diagnosed with advanced Hodgkin lymphoma, the news hit him like a bolt from the blue. He felt betrayed by his own body, and despite his best efforts to stay healthy, he found himself facing one of the most difficult battles of his life. As soon as he learned the diagnosis, Giulio decided to immediately inform his wife Laura and his daughter Alessia, still a teenager. Both were shocked by the news, and at least at the beginning, tried to appear strong and supportive. Giulio, despite his fear, tried to reassure them, promising that he would fight with all his strength. But his heart was heavy, not only for his health, but also for the worry of how the disease would affect his family. The doctor had explained to him that the treatment process would be long and arduous. The chemotherapy would take a toll on his body, and sometimes even the strongest relationships couldn't withstand the pressure of such a devastating disease. Despite everything, his wife Laura assured him that she would remain by his side and that she would do everything possible to support him during this difficult battle. Giulio clung to those words, hoping that they could be a lifeline in the darkest days. Financially, the family was stable. Giulio had saved a considerable sum for the future of Alessia, their only daughter, and the house was fully paid for. They had good insurance, and despite the seriousness of the situation, at least from an economic point of view, Giulio felt protected. The first weeks of chemotherapy were a living hell. Giulio would come home exhausted, unable to do the simplest things like eat or walk. Laura and Alessia began to take care of him, preparing his meals and accompanying him to chemotherapy sessions. But as time went by, Giulio began to notice a change. His family, who initially seemed ready to support him at all times, began to show signs of tiredness and frustration. One day, Giulio realized he was late for a chemotherapy session and asked Laura to accompany him. She, tired and visibly irritated, suggested he take a taxi. Giulio was speechless. He couldn't understand how, after everything they were going through together, he could receive such a cold and detached response. He called a taxi, trying to hide his disappointment. Upon returning from that session, he asked Laura and Alessia if they felt overwhelmed by his requests and if they considered him a burden. Laura admitted that the situation had become difficult to manage, while Alessia confessed that she had not imagined how tiring it would be to take care of him. Giulio, although wounded, tried to find a solution to alleviate their fatigue. He proposed hiring a nurse who could assist him in daily chores and accompany him to chemotherapy sessions. Much to his relief, the family accepted the idea. So they hired a professional nurse, Maria, who began to come to their home a few days a week. Maria took care of everything. She prepared meals, accompanied Giulio to therapies, and helped him with daily activities. Her presence seemed to ease the tension in the house, and Giulio noticed that Laura and Alessia were more serene, but that relief was short-lived. Despite Maria's help, Laura seemed increasingly distant. One day, Giulio found her arguing with her mother on the phone. He discovered that her mother-in-law was upset about the presence of another woman in the house, even if she was a nurse. Laura began to insinuate that Giulio could do more on his own and that he shouldn't depend so much on others, but he, weakened by his illness, tried to explain to her that it wasn't a question of laziness, but of pure survival. Unfortunately, shortly afterward, the unexpected happened. Returning home from a chemotherapy session, Giulio found a moving truck parked in front of his house. Laura and Alessia had packed up all their belongings and informed him that they were moving in with his mother. Are you enjoying this story? Before you see how it ends, subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Giulio was shocked and devastated. He asked his daughter if she was really sure of her decision, but Alessia coldly told him that living with him during his illness had become too difficult. From that day on, Giulio was left alone, but fortunately his brother Luca, who lived a few hours away, stepped up to help him. Luca, outraged by Laura's behavior, proposed that his wife Anna, who was going through a difficult time, temporarily move in with Giulio to help him. Giulio accepted, grateful for the support. Anna proved to be a great help, taking care of the household chores and offering some company. After several months of treatment, the doctors finally gave him the news he had been waiting for. Giulio was in remission. The cancer was defeated. Despite the joy of his recovery, he knew that his life would never be the same again. He decided to start the process of divorce from Laura, knowing that their marriage could no longer continue after the abandonment. Over time, Giulio regained his strength, returned to work, and tried to rebuild his life. He moved to a new house, far from the painful memories of the past, and began to take up new hobbies, such as woodworking. But the past came back to haunt him. One day, he received an unexpected visit from Laura and Alessia. They had returned, but not to apologize or to reconcile. They wanted something. Laura had lost her parents' house and was trying to get from Giulio what was no longer hers. Their visit culminated in a violent confrontation, with Laura smashing a window in Giulio's new home. Fortunately, the police intervened and arrested both her and Alessia. Giulio, hurt but determined, filed a complaint and closed that chapter of his life once and for all. He had learned a hard lesson. Sometimes the people you think you can count on abandon you when you need them most. But he had also discovered a new inner strength that would allow him to move forward, leaving the past behind and building a better future. And you, how would you have reacted in Giulio's place? Write it in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video till the end, and see you next time.